From the moment I was old enough to understand words, my parents had already decided who I was going to be, not the smart one, not the successful one, not the child worth investing in, but simply the mistake they were forced to raise. Whenever relatives visited, my mother proudly introduced my sister as the brilliant one, the future doctor, the pride of the family. And then she would gesture toward me with a tired smile and say, "And this is the other one." Everyone laughed. I learned to laugh too, because it hurt less when I pretended it didn't. At school, my sister collected awards while I collected silence. Teachers stopped calling on me. Friends stopped waiting for me. Even at dinner, conversations floated around scholarships, internships, and bright futures, none of which included my name. Eventually, I stopped speaking unless spoken to, and after a while, I stopped expecting anything at all. When my sister was accepted into Harvard, the celebration lasted an entire week. Neighbors arrived with gifts. My father hosted a dinner, and he proudly announced that she would one day inherit everything he had built. The company, the house, the investments, the legacy. He spoke about pride and the future, while I sat at the far end of the table cutting my food into pieces too small to eat. Graduation day felt like the final confirmation of everything I had ever been told about myself. My sister stood on stage in a crimson gown while cameras flashed and applause thundered through the hall. My parents stood cheering louder than anyone. I stayed seated in the back row, invisible among strangers. After the ceremony, my father hugged her and spoke loudly about the Tesla she would drive, the mansion she would live in, and the empire she would one day lead. Then he glanced at me and nodded politely, as if I were a distant acquaintance. I slipped outside before anyone noticed I was gone and sat alone on a bench near the parking lot, watching families celebrate and take photos, trying to understand how it felt to belong somewhere. That's when a black car pulled up beside the curb. A man in a simple gray suit stepped out and walked toward me with calm certainty, as if he had known exactly where I would be. He handed me a sealed envelope and said quietly, "For years, people assumed the wrong child would change the future." Before I could ask what he meant, he turned and left. My hands trembled as I opened the envelope. Inside was a letter and a key card and a truth no one had ever told me. Years earlier, when my father's company was on the verge of collapse, a silent investor had stepped in and saved everything. That investor remained anonymous, holding majority control while allowing my father to remain the public face of success. After years of observation, mentorship from a distance, and careful evaluation of character rather than appearance, the controlling shares had been transferred not to the celebrated daughter, not to the genius everyone praised, but to me. Because resilience had been noticed, patience had been measured, silence had been mistaken for weakness when it was actually endurance. I sat frozen on the bench, reading the letter again and again while the sounds of celebration echoed from the hall behind me. If you have ever been overlooked, underestimated, or treated like you didn't matter, you understand the weight of a moment like this, the instant when the world finally sees what others refuse to acknowledge. I walked back into the hall slowly, the envelope steady in my hand. My sister stood surrounded by admiration. My father described expansion plans to guests. My mother posed for photos. I cleared my throat, but no one heard. I stepped forward and placed the letter on the table in front of my father. He stopped speaking. He read the first line, then the second, and the color drained from his face. My mother leaned closer. My sister's smile faded. Silence spread across the table like a shadow. "Is this a joke?" my father whispered. I shook my head, in a room where I had never been given space. The truth suddenly demanded all of it. The company, the legacy, the future they had promised each other, none of it was theirs to decide anymore. For the first time in my life, no one laughed, no one dismissed me, and no one looked past me. They looked at me, not as the mistake, not as the other one, but as the person who had quietly endured everything and risen beyond it. In that moment, I realized something far more powerful than revenge. I no longer needed their approval. It's because my value had already been recognized long before they were willing to see it. Sometimes the quiet ones are not empty. They are observing, learning, and waiting. And when their moment finally arrives, it does not shout. It changes everything in silence.